So the issues last night on the Missouri side of the state line were more about taxes and different issues-based items. And we now welcome on and say hi to David Stokes of the Show Me Institute. David, the one that really stands out to me, Jackson County voters saying no to a local use tax for, as the question writes here, financing roads and bridge construction projects within the county. But then it goes on to note, financial assistance for homeless people and persons at risk of becoming homeless. Jackson County saying no to that by a, 20-point margin, I believe it was. So what do you make of that?
I make of it that the voters of Jackson County right now just don't want a new tax. I think it's pretty clear. Now I'll tell you one thing though, Pete. Frank White was right about what you just read there, that the tax was overly specific in how it was going to be spent. For a general tax like this, and the use tax, as I'm sure most of your listeners know, I'm sure many of them voted yesterday, and based on the numbers, many of them voted against it. It's just a sales tax on the goods you purchase online. So it's not particularly complicated, and it was overly specific. Taxes like that are better spent just focused on where the legislative needs and the government needs are most, as opposed to marijuana taxes, where when cities pass them, those are cities or counties. If you can dedicate those to health-related needs, I think that's preferable. But Frank was right. County Executive White was right that this was too specific, and whether the voters agreed with that or more likely just did not want, in this time of getting their new property tax bills in the mail right around the same time they're voting, clearly they just did not want a new tax. And the really interesting thing, Pete, was that, the use tax passed by a fairly wide margin in Kansas City, but it failed overwhelmingly in eastern Jackson County and went down total overall.
Well, I know your dog would have been a no vote, too, last night. I can tell that. I can hear it in his bark right there.
She hates taxes. She just hates new taxes.
David Stokes. All right. I mean, I feel like last night it really was, as you noted, not only was it a poorly written question, a poorly organized question, it was the Jackson County taxpayer sticking it to the county saying, enough. You guys have screwed us here. We still don't know what's going on with our property tax situation. And you want more money from us? I mean, take a hike. It just felt like it was as much of a message-sending thing to Frank White and the legislature as it was anything else. And it worked out in their favor because you know how this goes. Usually when it comes to these taxes and some of these counties that might lean blue, they're going to vote yes on it, especially when they mix in the line about helping the homeless.
Right. And let me tell you that at Show Me Institute, we're not even opposed to use taxes. There's a good argument for them. It broadens the base. It levels the playing field between online sales and brick and mortar sales. But we also get that it's a new tax. I mean, sometimes people try to tell you it's not a new tax. It is. It's something that you weren't paying taxes on, and now you're going to. And what I really hope now is that Jackson County does not follow the trend of other cities and counties around the state when voters reject these things and do what a lot of other cities and counties do and put it right back on the ballot like 6 months later or 9 months or a year later. I hope that the Jackson County officials listen to the voters and wait, if they're going to ever put it back on the ballot again, and I'm sure they will, wait 4 to 5 years to do so. It just drives me nuts when voters reject new tax proposals and city officials put it back on the ballot 1 year later. I very much hope you don't see that in Jackson County. And based on the results of this vote, where it was defeated overwhelmingly, I think there's a good chance they won't.
All right. So, David, what else surprised you on the Missouri side last night, or are the big takeaways from last night?
Well, marijuana taxes continue to pass pretty easily around the state. Tons of cities and counties had them on the ballot last April, and I predict next April many more will as well. But yesterday, there were several cities in the Kansas City area, as well as places around the state of Missouri, that had these 3% local marijuana taxes, and they pretty much appear to be passing just about everywhere. And I think I mentioned them earlier, that's a pretty reasonable tax too. I don't want, I'm sounding like I'm Mr. Pro-New Tax Guy this morning, and I think you know me well enough to know that I'm not. But marijuana is like alcohol and like tobacco. Your voters know this. It imposes certain costs on society more so than just average, ordinary products do. So I think it's fair for these small local taxes to be on top of that to accomplish a few things. At the county level, you can direct these taxes to local county health needs. And in a few cities with their own health departments, you can do that too. And that's good. That's really smart public policy to do that. In other cities that don't have their own health departments, you can't really direct it to those needs. So the smart thing is just to put it to general revenue in those cases, maybe help focus on your police department and enforcing, driving under the influence type laws, things like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm continuing to be struck with how easily these bills are passing in most of the states, but not everywhere. They occasionally get defeated around the state, but I didn't see anything like that in Kansas City last night.
David Stokes, Show Me Institute is on KCMO. Good point there. And but there is that fine line between overtaxing it to the point where people say, screw it, I'm going back to, the black market on this stuff. What about Clay County? They tack $1 on for, I think it's phone bills, cell phone bills to pay for 911 systems. Passed pretty easily. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have passed, but I do always wonder this, David, right? So this money is to help the 911 system in Clay County. The amount of taxes that people already pay, it would seem to me funding a 911 system is like, I don't know, a pretty high thing on the priority list. But when you frame it as such of, well, it's money for the 911 system, are you telling me there's nothing else that you're wasting money on that couldn't be diverted to 911 resources? I just feel like that's a high priority issue that somehow wasn't being funded. And with all the tax dollars that we, have out there, I don't know how that happens.
Well, one of the interesting things about 911 systems, and I don't know if to the extent Clay County may or may not do this, so I'm speaking a little more generally here. But yes, you do get, some parts of the state of Missouri are already funding 911 systems, maybe cities or the like. And then sometimes you'll have regions impose a new tax where some people in that region weren't paying anything towards it and some people were, and everybody gets hit. So that's sort of the trick there. It's like there's been consideration of statewide 911 taxes. Well, that just hurts the cities and counties that have already funded their 911 systems and benefits the cities and counties that haven't when you take these things statewide. But I would really hope what we see in Clay County is that 911 systems are the perfect example for government service sharing. And what I mean by that is for cities, counties, fire districts, university police departments, there can be lots of different people involved here, to all get in on one countywide 911 system. And perhaps that's what they're planning in Clay County, and that would be wonderful. But you've seen in other parts of the state, still, like in Lake of the Ozarks, they're really struggling for cities and counties, which oftentimes have their own small 911 systems. People are trying to get some service sharing here in order to save money and allow them to put that money into better 911 technology. And it's really difficult because people are out there protecting their fiefdoms. Lawrence County in southern Missouri a couple of years ago merged all of their local emergency agencies, fire, police, schools, on, into one system, and it's really worked out great for them. And that's just what I hope we see in Clay County. Mm-hmm. There should really be one shared system. With this new tax that the voters passed, which should be at that amount enough to fund a terrific system, I hope it's a countywide system that every entity, every first responder entity in Clay County should be a part of. And I hope that's what they come up with. And again, not an expert on their specific plan, but I hope that's what it is generally.
Well, we appreciate you, David Stokes. Thanks for the recap on the Missouri side last night, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Pete. Always enjoyed being on the air with you and your listeners. A lot of information on these issues, especially the 911 system plans at showmeinstitute.org.
Thank you, David Stokes. Good to have him on. And I'm glad his dog hates taxes as much as the rest of us do, most importantly.